Welcome everybody from my home office for the second time at SchwuZ Tech Festival, and hopefully for the last time, since the pandemic is hopefully coming to an end. But nevertheless, I'm very, very pleased and very happy to have set up a panel on our topic about Berlin's club scene going green. So like party, like there's actually a tomorrow, and we're going to learn a little bit today about what the challenges are for the clubs here, what they can do in terms of getting more sustainable, and that's why I'm very happy to have this panel here. But before we get started, maybe I'll say a couple of words about Berlin Partner, who we are, what we do, because we're the host of this session. We're proud partners of the German Energy Agency and their SchwuZ Tech Festival for the fourth time by now, I believe. Since the event is always being hosted here in Berlin, and we are the local business development agency of the city. We of course have a strong interest in getting innovative, cool startup events here in the city. And what we do on a day-to-day basis basically is that we support companies from out of Berlin with their first steps here. So let's say you're an innovator coming from France or from the UK or wherever you're from. You would look for guidance if you're interested in starting your business activities here in Berlin. And we would always be the first point of contact. I work for the energy and clean tech team at Berlin Partner, and we have different clusters that we serve, but I'm in that specific field. And basically what we offer is guidance with the first steps, be it look for an office, look for local staff, look for public funding. And of course, we have a very, very strong network here in the city, because our job is also to get to know all our local actors, interconnect them, and bring them into, ideally, innovation projects here in the city in order to, foster the innovation in the city. We're completely funded by the local government, which is why our services are generally free of charge, because the local government obviously has a strong interest in attracting companies here in our region. That's why we're there to help. And of course, we have all the services that I just mentioned, which you can profit of. And currently, that's why I brought my colleague Robin here as well. We're working on a new service which is going to be launched next year. Robin is our sustainability officer at Berlin Partner, and he's going to give a couple of words on our new sustainability service that we're going to be offering next year.
Right. Thank you, Janis, and good morning, everyone. My name is Robin. So we're planning to launch a new sustainability service actually by January 2022. So our main idea is to act kind of as a broker. So we're not a consultancy or anything, but you can come to us with your requests on sustainability, and we try to show you what, for example, are funding schemes for sustainability. For example, how do you install PV on your roof, on your facades? How can you install a green roof, for example? Or how can you make your processes more energy efficient? And what are funding programs to do that? And we're also connecting you with all the sustainability players in Berlin with, for example, consultancies, projects, initiatives, etc. So that's going to be our job. And it's actually part of our own sustainability strategy, which we set this year. And we committed to the German Sustainability Code, the DNK, and we submitted our first sustainability report. And next to the service, our other priority will be how do we become carbon neutral ourselves? And the goal will be to become carbon neutral, at least for scopes 1 and 2, by the end of next year. And we're going to check out how deep we can dive into scope 3. For example, our travels will be a big issue as well, which we will try to work on. Now, giving back to Janis. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robin. Konstanze is out now. So after a little introduction about us and about Berlin Partner, I want to finally get to the topic which you're all here for. I think we chose a topic that sticks a little bit out of the agenda, because we're going to talk about clubbing and what does that have to do with sustainability and the topic of the SchwuZ Tech Festival. But you're going to see in the next hour that there's a lot of connections that clubbing and sustainability have in common. And I want to quickly present you our panelists for today. We have Konstanze Meyer here. She's the head of the project Clubtopia, which was founded in 2019. And she is trying to work together with her team on getting Berlin clubs more sustainable. And she offers consulting services. It's going to let us know more about her projects and tell us about the different challenges that the clubs have and what they are actually achieving here at the moment. Then we have Georg here, which I'm very happy that he could join us because actually he's on holidays at the moment, but thank you very much for joining us. He's a member of the Green Party and also a member of the Berlin Senate, and he was the spokesperson for club culture and environment and sustainability in the Berlin Senate. And it's going to shed some light on the importance of clubbing for Berlin and also what kind of how you interconnect sustainability together with clubbing. Then we have Marcel here. He's one of the managing directors of SchwuZ Club, which is one of the oldest queer clubs, not only in Berlin, but also in Germany. And he has been working together with Konstanze already and trying to get his club more sustainable. So he's going to give us some kind of live example on how you can go, where they're at the moment in their club and where they want to go. And all the way from Scotland came David. He works for the company Townrock Energy. He's the CEO and founder of the company. And I'm sorry, there's somebody joined, but that's okay. Keep listening. Robin, if you can take him out, that would be okay. Thank you. And David is working on a very interesting project in a club in Glasgow, which he's going to tell us more about later on. I want to start with Georg to ask you a question, especially because you've been a member of the Berlin Senate and you've been the spokesperson for these topics for the last 5 years. And I would like to know, what exactly you've been fighting for in the Berlin Senate, and maybe you can explain what the importance of clubbing is for the city of Berlin.
Yeah, thanks, Janis. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really happy to be invited and be here with you all here and talk about it. Because the topic is really close to my heart, both topics, climate protection and club culture. And for the last 5 years, we have seen an increase in political action in both fields. Now, and luckily or by coincidence, I combined them within my person because I was responsible for both within our parliamentary coalition and try to coordinate a little bit the context with the club scene and doing a lot of work and met a lot of wonderful people like Konstanze and myself, and I'm really happy about it. So the topic of club culture increased in public attention somehow within the last years. And it is important for me to note that we're not just talking about the economic effects of club culture on Berlin. I mean, I think every fourth tourist who comes to Berlin comes because of clubbing, or clubbing is one of the reasons he or she comes to Berlin. Every fourth tourist. That is really a huge amount. We have over €1 billion generated directly or indirectly within the nightlife industry. But it's not just this. It's also cultural influence clubs and club culture and club music has on our entire culture in Berlin. You can see that in the operas and the theaters. Clubs are everywhere. Club music, electronic music is everywhere somehow. And it's also a social dimension. It's safe spaces for people. Marcel will probably talk more about it as he's one of the really best persons to talk about it with his club, obviously. So then came Corona 2 years ago, and as Berlin, we said club culture is part of culture. It's not just something like casinos or brothels, which is officially according to German federal law, but in Berlin we see it as really a cultural branch, a branch of culture. And we did this to give clubs a sign of hope within the Corona pandemic. but also because we think it's right and that's the way to look at clubs. It's not just for enjoyment and to get, I don't know, have a nice party, but it's a cultural and social branch of our city and makes so much for our city.
Thank you, Georg. And you might think like clubbing, what kind of impact does it have? But of course, clubbing, going to clubs here in Berlin or any club is very energy intensive, and that's why Konstanze is working on this topic. Konstanze, I would like to give us a brief overview about Clubtopia. So how did this project develop? What you're working on, and what are usually the first steps that you can support the clubs with? I'm afraid we can't really hear you. Sorry. It's a little disturbed the connection. Maybe
that's the famous German internet connection.
Well, that's okay. That's okay, Konstanze. Maybe you try to figure out use another browser. I'm gonna direct the same question to Marcel then. Maybe give us a little bit about an example about your own club. So, what do you think the club culture or clubs in general can contribute also towards the topic of sustainability, and how do you do it in your own club? No, you're muted.
So now you can hear me. Super. Thank you for the invitation. So yeah, what we've done so far, we started with the energy consultation together with Clubtopia, where Konstanze is from, and I would say in English, the Association for Environment and Nature Conservation, the Bund, B-U-N-D. And there we also got to know Konstanze, and the consultation resulted in some recommendations for actions that we have implemented already. And we are one of the first signatories of the Code of Conduct for a sustainable club culture as well. So the project is running now for us as a participant like 5 years now. Konstanze, we started 5 years ago, so I think. And for us as a club, we see climate protection also as an important social tasks that clubs also have to face, because in the end, it's also a social issue for us, so for future generations, to save this planet who's really fucked up, I would say. It's a topic for us. And what we've done is we switched to 100% of certified green electricity. It's also not so easy to find a vendor that is giving 100% really green electricity. And also we reduced our water consumption and replaced our technical devices with digitally controlled and energy saving devices. And we also focused on reducing waste, and like we don't giving out any straws anymore at the bar. So, and we also communicated this to our customers. That's really important too, that they getting an idea of what we are doing and how important it is for us. So yeah. But also we reached our limits, because as much as we want to minimize our fingerprint, we still consume resources. So that's another topic. And we have the plan to become climate neutral or climate positive one day. So to this end, we are currently looking into a Yeah, forest conservation project in the region of Berlin, Brandenburg. So maybe this is a possibility to compensate our CO2 consumption, but it's also a try to find ways to giving more back than we needed. So, but this is a task we are really starting with it. And also another question is for us that there is a lot of energy that is we are having in the club because the people are dancing. There is the heat generated in the club, and is there a way that we can use this energy and in a different way that releasing to the environment? So yeah, that's the topics. Yeah, we are dealing with it.
Well, thank you, Marcel. That was the perfect lead to what David's probably going to say, because David is working, as I said, for Townrock Energy, a company. Now we hear the drill, David. It's not only in your head. But I hope we can hear you fine. David, why don't you tell us a little bit about the project you're realizing in the club in Glasgow, which is exactly what Marcel talked about. Using the body heat of people dancing is what Marcel and his club SchwuZ has been doing so far, are the obvious steps. Obviously, we switch towards green energy, reduce waste, all of this. But I want to get to know what technical solutions could be there. Where, how could we reduce the CO2 footprint by using technology and innovation?
Cool. Yeah. Thank you, Janis. I'll talk a little bit about Townrock and the body heat system, and then I think I might want to just tell the story of how this innovative project has come to happen, because it's quite an interesting story, and it helps understand where's this market, where's this industry going right now, and this culture. So I'm I'm David Townsend. Yeah, I run and set up a company called Townrock Energy. We are Scotland's geothermal specialists, which means we basically do renewable heating and cooling from the ground. We do consultancy. We also do research and development, and we develop some new technologies as well. So the body heat project also, like George said, I combined two of my biggest passions, which are going to clubs, going out for events, dancing, partying with friends, and also trying to address climate change and reduce carbon emissions. And this came up because, well, basically what the system does is, as we know, anyone who's been clubbing knows that it gets very, very hot and sweaty in these clubs when everyone's dancing. And, in some cases, that's a good thing. That's part of the experience. But in many cases, it's more comfortable if it's cooled, and at least some of that extra heat is removed from the room. So I saw there's a lot of, systems do this already, like air conditioning systems, but that just throws the heat out into the atmosphere and wastes it. So what if we designed a system that instead captured that heat and then stored it, and then we could use it again for heating the building or heating a neighboring building or generating hot water for the club or a variety of other things, anything you can use heat for. So being I went went a little bit around about lots of different designs with our engineers and with another engineering company as well. And for this particular club in Glasgow, we're using about 10 boreholes in the ground that are installed with pipes like a normal ground source heat pump. And then in the evenings, on the weekends, you get up to about 6,000 people in this club. Right now, it's only 600, 700 because of COVID, but pre-COVID, up to thousands. And there's a lot of heat being generated, and all that heat goes through pipes and into the ground. The sweat and the smell and everything doesn't go with it. It's just the heat is taken out of the air. And that ground, those boreholes charge up like a big thermal battery. And then because this club in particular is also a number of art studios, an art gallery, a cafe, a restaurant, they have lots of mixed uses. These other spaces need heating during the day. And of course, there's a lot of hot water use. So then the system flips over during the day, Monday to Friday, and gives heat back out. So it's very efficient, it's very low carbon. And just briefly, I'll tell you how this has come about. So I was put in touch with the owner of this club, SWG3 in Glasgow, about 2 years ago. And I went over to his club and met with him. And he was just generally saying he wants the club to be sustainable. He wants to achieve net zero. And the main drivers are that most of his customers are quite young, 18 to 25-year-olds, and they really care. But also they do corporate events. They rent out the whole space for conferences and for dinners, and companies really care as well. And they're willing to pay a premium for a net zero event night. So he's interested in the big picture. And while we were walking around his site, I realized, wow, there's a lot of heating, there's a lot of cooling, there's a lot of space as well. There's a beer garden, there's a garden. So why don't we use the ground here as a way to store all of this heat? So then we started doing a little bit of work, and then the pandemic hit and everything got canceled. Of course, he has no idea what's happening to his business. So we stopped everything. But then halfway through the pandemic, and this is what really inspires me, because the climate change summit in Glasgow is happening in 2 weeks, this client got back in touch with his sort of financial director, and they said, look, we are making no money right now. We're really struggling. We don't know what's going to happen, but we want to come back with a bang. And we want to come back with body heat as the system for our club, for COP26, and for our customers, to really motivate them to come back clubbing again. So we started developing the system. So for the last year, we've gone through feasibility study designs. We made a business case. We raised £350,000 of funding from the government, from grants and from loans. That is now funding the building of this whole system. And since then, over the summer, we've been going through the very, very detailed designs. How do we bring this innovative concept to reality? And what's the best way to do it? And also, what's the most cost-effective way to do it? Because, of course, you can throw money at something innovative and build a really, really high-tech project. But we want to make this replicable. We want other clubs to look at this system and say, that's really cool. How much does it cost? And when we say how much it costs, they go, oh, okay. I think we could see that fitting into our timeline at some point. So this is just one of the pieces of the puzzle. What you're doing, Marcel, is super, super important. Reducing water consumption, reducing waste, all this stuff needs to be done as well. And this is this can be a big piece of the puzzle, whereby you essentially eliminate your heating and your cooling carbon emissions. And if you're all electric already and you're 100% renewable, then you've almost already done that. So then what this system does is it gives you that extra communication piece with your customers, because I think everyone wants to hear that they are a source of renewable energy that is going to be used in a useful way when they're dancing. It's that extra bit of motivation to dance and have a really good night. So yeah, maybe enough for me right now, but yeah.
Well, you've already answered a couple of questions that I would have had later on, but that's awesome, because you made a very, very good introduction about how something very innovative can actually work in practice with all the steps that you need. Konstanze, I hope you can hear us now and we can hear you. Maybe give it a little try, because I want to. Yes.
I hope now it will work.
Of course, I'll give you the chance to talk a little bit about Clubtopia, but as you've already heard now from David, how it can work in best practice to actually bring something, some very innovative solutions into a club. Maybe you can also, when you start talking about the project, already say what kind of problems you already have, because you need like a club owner or a building owner that is 100% committed to realize something that David is doing. So maybe, tell us about the project, Clubtopia, and also about the problems that you in your day-to-day work might face.
Yeah, so sorry again for the little technical issues. Even after so many times on digital conferences, you still face them. So about Clubtopia, so we are a project funded by the Berlin Center for Environment, Transport and Climate Protection. And it actually grew out of a volunteer initiative we had. We loved clubbing, but we always thought the energy consumption is too high, and we wanted to change that. And that's why we started offering free of charge energy consulting in clubs. And out of this, over the years, we grew a larger project, which is now called Clubtopia. And in addition to energy consulting, we also offer an online guide which provides all the useful information that clubs need to change their business into something really sustainable. And also we offer, together with the club, we've created a code of conduct, which I think Marcel already mentioned as one of the first signer. And in addition to that, we also have the Innovation Lab, a Future Party Lab, which is really an event for innovation. And that's why I'm really, really excited to hear about the idea of creating, of using the heat from club guests. And I think, Janis, you wanted me to talk a little bit about the problems that we face in our daily work. So on the one hand, I think it's a little bit about the environment in which clubs operate. So the issues, of course, they usually don't have the funding to really pay for really expensive, innovative ideas and also to make big investments. And often clubs don't really have the perspective, like for the next 10 or 20 years, if they can stay in the same place. So investments really is difficult because their perspective sometimes it's 1 year. We had even a club, they had a lease contract for 6 months. So every 6 months they were afraid to be kicked out, and in the end it did happen. So that's the issues that clubs in Berlin face, and that's why some of them tend to be a little bit reluctant to actually make big investments. And that's why we as an organization try to focus on the little steps, on like small things such as changing light bulbs or changing fridges, everything that actually, if the club changes to a new location, they can move around. So, but still we know that the big issues, they are of course heating and all the big energy consumers in the club, and heat is really one of this. Is actually, we always have the impression it's a subject that no one really wants to talk about. It's really not sexy. They love to talk about solar panels and about water and everything, but heating, really, it's a little bit what we call in German stiefmütterlich. And these issues like low fundings and short perspective, the clubs, they face them, and that's why we have actually, we are always struggling to find innovations that don't necessarily have to be funded by the clubs themselves, but that can also work in partnerships, and that actually work as a communication tool, as David already mentioned. It's about communicating to your guests that they can be part of a green transition. So.
Yeah, thank you, Konstanze. That's already a shout out to the audience. Like, if there's innovators out there that have solutions for sustainable clubbing, please come forward. Please also ask your questions here in the chat or get in touch with us after the event. But we've talked a lot about that it needs commitment, of course, by the club, and about the funding issues they might have. That's why I want to get back to Georg. Because I'm going to confront you with a quote that I read online actually, and you said we have a multi-million-dollar fund available for climate protection within the city, and there's still a lot of money left. So whoever has a good idea has to come forward. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about this fund. It's obviously not only for clubs, but and also what other measures could politicians or politics or the administration take in order to bring more sustainable solutions also to clubs, but also into other sectors, obviously.
Yeah, thanks. I think that quote is 3 or 4 years old, because we started this fund having with a total amount of almost 100 million euros at the start of the last parliamentary period, which is 4 to 5 years ago, and we had about 20 to 25 million euros for every year set aside just for climate measures. And part of the money was for private actors, part for the public sector, part for investment, part for projects. So there were different pieces of the money pot set aside. And in the first years, we really had the problems because there was just nobody coming up with good ideas, and the money was literally lying around. And well, money is not rotting, but of course it's hard for me as a climate politician to ask for more money in the coming budget years if the money is not used. Right now it looks better, so large parts of the money are assigned to projects, but still, if you have good projects, however, you cannot just, unfortunately, you cannot just come up with any nice idea. We have this thing called Berlin Climate and Energy Program. It's a program with around 105 measures and actions and strategies on all fields, from building bicycle lanes to decarbonizing heating systems to our local transportation services. And one of these measures actually is making clubs green. And somehow, by coincidence or by a godly divine intervention, I don't know, probably it was just Konstanze, this measure, this action, Green Clubs, was the very first action that was put into practice. The very first money that flew from this 100 million euro Berlin climate money pot was going towards Konstanze and this action, because there was someone, Clubtopia, and clubs willing to go forward and say, okay, we take action, we start a project. It's a tiny project. And I'm really, really proud and happy that we have these people in Berlin. And I hope that in the next climate and energy program, green clubbing somehow is included again, and people with ideas like David can then come to the Berlin Senate or to a club, and together they can approach the Senate and say, and ask for some funding. Right now in Berlin, just to give you a perspective on the politics right now, we did have elections. Right now we have coalition negotiations. Most of us don't know what they're responsible for, who's going to the Senate. I still hope to become for climate politics and club culture, but this is rather unlikely. However, we will try to include a new money for climate, and this new climate program, which will be written within the next years, will include a lot of measures. And it's up to me, but also to Marcel, to Konstanze, to approach all political actors and say, please include measures and formulate them in a way that we can later apply for money. Because, one last sentence, the problem we had within the last 4 years is that we politicians were very strict. We knew what we wanted. We formulated the whole program very detailed. And then people came up with ideas, and the public administration, the financial administration said, okay, we cannot give you money because this is not exactly what the parliamentarians wanted. Your ideas is just slightly off target. And so many ideas were just left lying on the left or right side of the road and didn't get any funding. And we really have to improve this in the coming years. So if you have ideas, bring them forward, talk to me, talk to people involved within climate politics in the public administration or in politics in Berlin, and we try to find ways to make the new program and the wording that money can flow where good ideas are.
Yeah, or also come to us, as I said, as the first point of contact. We're definitely not the experts on this particular program, but we as Berlin Partner usually know exactly where to direct the people. So thank you very much, Georg. I think the elections, in that sense at least, went your way, that it all looks like we're going to have this center-left wing government here in Berlin, again with the Social Democrats, the left-wing party, and the Green Party, where you're a representative of. I think that it's going to happen, so let's hope that this kind of funds will also be available in the next legislative period. I would like to get back to Marcel now, because I wanted to ask you, especially now, you've been struggling, I suppose, with the pandemic throughout the last 1.5 years. Did you actually have the mind to think about sustainability in your club, or was this actually, especially the period where you could think about it because you didn't have like a daily business going on in the club? And another question that I also want to add: what importance do your guests have? Because obviously the sustainability doesn't stop at your clubbing door. When people go home, you try to make them more conscious about the topic of sustainability, so they can also think about that when they're going home. So you have this kind of ambassador role. So maybe you can describe this a little bit about. Yeah.
So yeah, two questions. I would like to answer of the first question. Yeah, it's still a topic for us also during the pandemic, because the pandemic is one day hopefully over soon, and the climate change is a so big issue for us that we also for the last 19 months already thinking about what we can do now, also during the time we are not open, to getting more sustainable if we are open up again. So yeah, it's a topic, and it's the biggest topic we have. So because if the planet is fucked up and the climate is really changing so fast, it's not a good future to look for. So this is why we take action also during the pandemic, and also we take action in the future. And the other question is, to communicate what we are doing is the one thing to our customers, and also giving our customers ideas of what they can do by themselves at home, because everybody can get the green electricity. So it's quite easy, and we also got some vouchers from our vendor and give them to our customers, so they're getting like a little present if they are changing their electricity vendor. So yeah, and it's also to give them stories about how we did it, and also what is so because we have the code of conduct and we have this website, zukunftfeiern.de, there are so many ideas. You can also do it by yourself at home as a club a party guest. So yeah, it's also good to get in a dialogue with your customers, so, and show them, hey, a lot of things we done you can also do by yourself.
Thank you. Konstanze, maybe a question. Like Marcel is, I would assume, one of your best practices from the past. Do all the clubs like welcome you with open arms and say, yeah, this is exactly the topic we've been waiting for, and we need support on this? Or is it sometimes that the clubs also think like, wow, we need to have a party, we don't care about the environment, we need to also earn money, of course, with to keep things going, and we cannot afford any of these measures?
I'm glad actually that this has changed over the years. The initiative we are based on started in 2011, when it was actually pretty exotic. even strange for people. And when we approached them, they were thinking, okay, energy consulting, so you do like the feng shui in our club. So they didn't really know why they should change anything. And I'm really, really glad that this has changed, especially in the last maybe 5 years. And I even say that openly, no club would tell us, no, I don't care about the environment, and no, none of their staff would tell us so. However, what we still see that the challenges why they don't change for a more sustainable way of operating the business or their cultural venue is those challenges. They are still there. And of course, they have to run their events, they have to do the booking, have to get the guests in and everything. And within, with the daily business, sustainability, which is often long-term measures, and it's difficult to implement those, with the business running and with challenges such as the pandemic and everything. However, what we actually experienced in the last year since the pandemic is that actually those clubs who had a slight chance of surviving it, they actually took advantage of this time and took this time to rethink their business and rethink the way they operate. And we had, for example, 2 online courses with team members of the clubs to become a green club manager or green night manager. And they actually, we couldn't even let everyone in that wanted to do it. So we were really overrun by the demand. And that's what we actually felt in the last year, that a lot of clubs did really take the time to rethink and become more sustainable.
Thanks. And maybe a quick question back to Marcel, because I'm curious now. Do you actually see the effects of the changes you made on your energy bill already?
Yes, we see this already, and this is a good news that we pay less money for energy and electricity, and also now the green electricity is getting cheaper for the future, I think. So yeah, we save money.
That's exactly what you want to hear, of course, at the end of the day. Little investment in the beginning and great savings, and then as a second step, David, maybe even thinking about more innovative solutions. You've talked about the solution you're implementing in Glasgow, and you talked about how you need boreholes to store the heat. Is there actually also a possibility to adapt your solution to smaller clubs, to clubs of any size? And in terms of technology, what alternatives would be there to actually implement a project like this?
Yeah, thanks, Janis. Absolutely. I mean, so this club is also an arts charity. It has a number of offices, restaurant. It has a lot of things going on. We've looked at the whole building and we've designed phase 1 body heat, and we're going to have a phase 2, which is already pretty finite, and then there's a phase 3, which is really ambitious. And phase 1 is putting cooling and heating to 2 of the big indoor rooms, and there's 3 big indoor event spaces where 3 or 4 nights a week people are dancing. So we're doing heating and cooling to those 2 rooms, and we're storing the heat in 10 boreholes outside. Now, the boreholes on this particular design were a matter of scale. The amount of thermal storage you can get from boreholes is very, very large. Whereas a hot water tank in a club, not only do you need a very big tank to do even close to what the boreholes are doing, that also takes up premium floor space inside. So this has the benefit of not impacting the interiors of the club at all, and leaving the event space as needs be. But every club is very different, and in going through this initial design, we're also making the system ready to connect to the new foyer. So there's a big new foyer coming in that has art exhibits in it and everything. That's going to have heating coming from this system sometime next year. And then the underfloor heating. So this is actually a very innovative part. There's an existing underfloor heating system that uses gas boilers, and we're going to replace that underfloor heating source with this system as well. However, we need to wait for the ground, for the boreholes to charge up to a certain temperature. So it'll take the first maybe 2 years for the ground temperature in the boreholes to get to the right temperature, about 25 degrees Celsius, and then we can do free heating. So we will use no electricity, or very, very tiny amounts of electricity, but no heat pump, no HVAC system. That free heating comes directly from the boreholes and through the underfloor heating. So the underfloor heating goes to 25 degrees. So that means over the first few years of the project, it becomes more and more sustainable and larger at the same time, and cheaper to run and better. So part of our role is not just to build this and walk away from it. It's to collect lots of data from it, to test it, to analyze that data, and to then optimize as we slowly integrate other parts of the building onto it. Now, for different clubs, not all clubs are 6,000 people capacity with 5 rooms and all these different factors. So for a very, very small club, we're looking at like a micro body heat system, whereby you would do just cooling for one event space. So you would, for the biggest club, pull out the heat and charge up a hot water tank. And then that hot water tank does hot water for hand washing or showers, or in the case of Kit Kat, you could heat up their pool. So I think, you know, that system could be very, very affordable and would not have a very minimal impact on a club, versus what we're doing in Glasgow is ambitious. It's long-term vision. And the beauty of doing it for that space is we can trial lots of different types of body heat technology within the same club, and then we can pick the right ones for other clubs as we look to and start speaking to other clubs in other potential spaces.
Thank you, David. And Rob, I think that also answers your question you raised in the chat. If not, thank you very much for the thumbs up. We have 13 minutes left in our session because time's flying. Very interesting topic, very interesting answers. I want to look a little bit into the future, and I want to start again with Georg. We're talking about the climate goals that Germany has, that Berlin has. Officially, it's set to try to become, the city is trying to become climate neutral by 2045, which is the same goal as Germany as a whole at the moment has, and as Berlin has always been a front runner, actually in terms of climate protection. Do you think in the next legislative period there's going to be a decision on becoming even more ambitious in terms of climate goals, and what would be the action that politicians can take in order to achieve those goals?
You have rightly pointed out that we have the same climate neutrality goal as the Federal Republic, 2045, which is mainly due to the fact that we are so dependent on federal policies. Mm-hmm. As the Greens, we said we want to be faster wherever Berlin can be faster. For example, shutting down the inner city for combustion engine cars. I mean, it's an example. It's one example, and you can argue about it and how you do with it. That's one thing. But on the larger picture, especially because we import a lot of energy, we're just a city-state. We're dependent on the federal level. The single biggest issue in Berlin is not traffic, although traffic is lagging behind in climate protection massively. But you can at least imagine people switching to electric cars or switching to bicycles. And it's a question of cultural habit, how fast that is. The big technological problem is heating in Berlin. We don't know how to insulate our buildings faster. We don't have the staff so far. We don't have the regulations so far. It's one of the things that is debated within these coalition agreements now. We have no idea what comes out, where agreement could be. But we also just don't have enough renewable energies. We are talking about geothermal power, but we are getting our drinking water from Berlin. it's not from outside. So there's a conflict between water preservation and geothermal. It's very complex. I'm not an expert on it, but things like these have to be sorted out within the next 3 years to say if we can be faster with the general climate neutrality goal. There is, one last sentence, citizen initiatives calling for Berlin being climate neutral in 2030. I personally have great sympathy for them, but again, we have to have a revolution in the heating sector, otherwise this cannot be done.
Thank you, Georg. Marcel, looking into the future, how do you see SchwuZ in the next 5 to 10 years in terms of sustainability? What would be your next steps to become even more sustainable? Because you already mentioned that you want to become climate neutral or even climate positive in the future.
So first of all, I think the next step is to stay in contact with David and his project. It really sounds like a really good topic that we also can go with to our own owner of the building. So, and because they are also interested in these topics of sustainability. So, and there will be coming in the future also a kita and a school place and all this using of the building, because we are just one part of this big old brewery in Neukölln. So maybe we can have a connection there. And on the other side, I'm also part of the board of the Club Commission, the Berlin Club Commission, and we have to talk to the politics and to the administration of the city of Berlin, because it's really important for us that the access to the funding programs is not so high that only the application is a problem. So we have to talk about this. We also understand that there must be rules that the money is not wasted. But if you have this application and you have the problem to fill it out because it's so many pages, and yeah, so the barriers have to become lower. And also I think we have to lobbying with the politicians, and because if the goal of the city of Berlin is to become climate neutral, it's good to support the projects for sustainability, because the city have a really interest in it. So yeah, that's our work for the next 5 to 10 years. So
sounds ambitious.
Janis, can I jump in?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, on the topic of funding, and thank you, Marcel. I would very, very much like to follow up and know a bit more about your building and the multi-uses around that, because that's a really interesting starting point to see what is possible here with this technology. But funding, so I just want to make a point on funding. You know, we have successfully raised all of the funding for this project from 2 different Scottish government sources, a grant and a loan, but it has been a very painful process, and it's only happened, I think, because we are so committed. The club is so committed to this, and we as a company at Townrock Energy are so committed to making this happen. And we put in 2 very, very solid weeks in January, just putting together the 12 supporting documents, the financial model, the business plan, all the feasibility studies, the planning, everything, the licensing, and then also the actual application itself, and then going through 4 months of due diligence with consultants back and forth on every tiny little detail. So getting this funding was such a big celebration, and once we got it, it was almost like a surprise. We weren't even, you have to set yourself up for probably not going to get it, and then when you get it, it's incredible. So I think that does need, if we're going to tackle climate change as quickly as we need to, this does need to be expedited. And I'm seeing some early signs of positive movement in the Scottish government and the UK government, whereby things are being streamlined, and the rules, like you were talking about, Georg, the rules are being flexed, so that instead of saying you have to tick these 25 boxes, it's you have to accomplish this general goal, like X amount of carbon emission reduction or X number of green jobs created. And so long as you can demonstrate that goal, the actual project that you're using to create that, to achieve that goal, can be a little bit more flexible. So hopefully that's also something that might come out of the new political landscape in Berlin. But But yeah, if you need help filling out very, very technical piles of forms, Marcel, I can't do them in German, but maybe Konstanze can help me, and we can help you together.
That's a very good point, because that's often like we're as Berlin partner, we're often right in between there, because we also offer consulting services on public funding, not particularly on this program, but other programs that are offered here by the local investment bank of Berlin. And we see the problem that Georg described in the beginning. The money was there, but nobody was applying for it, which is oftentimes the problem, because the applications they need a lot of time, and in a day-to-day business, companies often don't think that it's really worth to invest that much time. And I want to say, yes, it is worth to do so. That's what David proved with his project. And if you're overwhelmed, you can always get help, like from us or from Konstanze. Other institutions here in Berlin as well can support the companies there. You just have to make the move and approach the different actors that are experts in this topic, and don't say, I do have an innovative idea, but it's probably never going to be funded, and I don't have the funds myself. So go out, look for public funding. It is available, and it is possible to get it, even though we of course know that it's hard. We have 4 minutes left, and Konstanze, I want to build, you call it Clubtopia, which has kind of the word utopia in mind as well, in the word as well. Draw your utopia. How could a super innovative club look like? In our first meeting, we talked about those kinetic dance floors that create energy, and you said, that's just symbolism. That's just a little playing around that cannot really have a big impact. I read Coldplay, the big band Coldplay is starting their world tour, and they're having these kinetic floors. Is that something? Is that just symbolism? Is it just a game? Or can that have an impact? So build your utopia. What could a club look like?
So for us, actually, it is the club of tomorrow, or the club of the future, is as diverse, as creative, as colorful, and of course loud as it always has been, or as it wants to be, but by respecting, of course, the resources, the limited resources that we have, and by thinking that future generations not only want to live on a good, on a livable planet, but also giving future generations the possibility to actually create culture themselves in their way, of course. But respecting those limited resources by a good energy management, good waste management, of course, mobility plays a role. And by taking care of all of these factors, we want to preserve the clubbing scene. But in order to do so, of course, everybody needs to, work and fill in those applications and go the extra mile. And that's what Clubtopia for us looks like. And what is important to me right now is actually that it shouldn't be a vision of, I don't know, in the next 20 years. For us, Clubtopia should start tomorrow, really. And we want people to actually move starting tomorrow with small steps and bigger steps, but do it right now without maybe having the, without thinking about perfection, but starting and moving. That's what we want Clubtopia to be like.
Sounds very good. I would say every step counts, and that's what you've learned from your everyday work. We're coming to an end of our session, and I don't see any more questions from the audience. If you have one, come up with it quickly. We have two minutes left, actually. But I would already start.
Janis eingefroren. Janis, you are freezed. If you can hear us.
I can still hear him, actually.
Okay, I can't.
So maybe that's you, Marcel. I see myself. I hear myself because I'm talking to myself, basically. But as there's no further questions, and I don't know if anybody from the panel, guys, if you want to add something, some last words to our session. Otherwise, I would say thank you very much for being there. Again, from your holidays, or David actually coming all the way from Scotland only to be here, doing your little field trip by clubbing here in Berlin. Awesome that you came over. And yeah, to all of you guys who are listening, get in touch with us as Berlin partner if you're interested in starting your business activities here in Berlin, be it with an innovative club project or be it in other energy or clean tech related project. Please come to us, get in touch with us. And if you have ideas for sustainable clubbing, get in touch with Konstanze or Marcel, David or Georg. They're open to your ideas. And let's see that we can get this multi-million-dollar fund empty. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you to the audience for listening to us, and have a great day.
Thank you all.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for having us.
See you later.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye.